Well, China found out the hard way. If you get into a trade war or economic war with the United States, it turns out not the greatest situation for China right now, considering they are down 10% the second the market opened. This ranks among the largest single-day crashes in modern Chinese history, rivaling the 2015 market meltdown, to give you an idea of how bad it is right now for China. Chinese shares opened sharply down on Monday morning after Donald Trump's tariff blitz last weekend and Beijing's retaliation. Hong Kong's Hang Seng index plunged 8.7% in early trading, with tech stocks Alibaba and Tencent falling more than 11%. That's a lot. While the mainland CSI 300 index fell 4%, with battery maker CATL falling 9.8%. China set the renminbi at its weakest level in more than 4 months on Monday morning, and a sign it may tolerate a gradual weakening of its currency. Chinese markets were closed on Friday. So they were waiting over the weekend to see what exactly would happen as far as these tariffs and the trade war. As we know, China threatened the United States with a higher tariff, and Donald Trump said, fine, do it. And the markets reacted. Now, here's what Donald Trump actually had to say about Europe. Because as I make this video, we don't know the numbers yet for Europe. What we know, though, is that China and Asia, not looking good right now.
Can you say, did you agree to lowering tariffs for any of the countries that you spoke to today? So
what you understand, Jennifer, you have to understand this. We have massive surplus countries that we're dealing with. We have massive deficits. We've got to straighten that out because you can't continue to be that way. It's been that way for years now, and it can't go on any longer. And we're the piggy bank. We have all the advantages. Forget markets for a second. We have all the advantages. We're going to straighten out. We're going to become a wealthy nation again. Wealthy like never before. And we're not going to let other nations that have been ripping us off, whether it's China or the European Union, with all of the European nations that have just made, it's been like a feast. Look, the European Union was formed for one reason. You know what that was? To rip off the United States. So put that in your bonnet.
Put that in your bonnet. Now, again, I think this is a really critical point for Donald Trump as far as what he said. Forget about the markets, because obviously right now you got Democrats, left-leaning media, and even Republicans saying the stock market is going to crash. Look at our economy. At the end of the day, what the United States has out of every single country in the world is stability, resources, but mainly instability, especially with the dollar, and innovation, and Donald Trump knows this. Countries literally cannot survive without the stability of the United States, and this is why China found out the hard way. And I think China really thought the American people were going to get so outraged because Americans love money and we love status. It turns out, nope. Now, I don't know who this man is, but he gave one of the best explanations as far as do not fall for the outrage. We are all getting duped by the stock market, quote unquote, crashing. If you guys know who this is, please let me know. I will give him all the credit in the world. This video is so important. Make sure you please take some notes.
One day, President Trump gave us economic justice. This is a day of reckoning. Lace them up and lace them tight. The bedwetters, the liberals, the left, everybody, they're all over this. Stock market went down 1,700 points. We're all going to die. It's the end of the world. Really? Oh my God, the NASDAQ went down 6%. Sell off, die. You're all going to go. Sky is falling. Go in a bunker. This is all the nonsense that you're going to get from the gangster bankers on Wall Street that have run this country for the last 50 years and screwed the American worker. The exploitation of the U.S. worker has ended. Do you know?
So this is the first really big point that for some reason we are all forgetting. This is a little more important than making a couple of dollars in the stock market. It's the exploitation of the cheap labor over in Europe. If we're going to be a moral country and act like we're all about taking care of the workers, what about the people who are making our iPhones, our shoes, everything else, let alone the workers in the United States who don't even have jobs because we exported them all over the world? This is first and foremost, like, probably one of the most important points besides this so-called economic fall off in the stock market.
know that what these Wall Streeters caused in 2008, stock market went down 50%. People were wiped out. You know what it went down yesterday? 2%. It went down 50%, and then they got bailed out. These are the people that I'm going to pay attention to, that have basically shipped your jobs overseas, scouring the earth for slave labor for 6 decades. No, I don't think so. Look, here's the bottom line of this thing. In one day, what President Trump did with a stroke of a pen, one man with courage, is he fixed 60 years of economic injustice for the American worker with one stroke of the pen in one day. So you better lace them up and lace them tight, because I'm telling you right now, the courage of President Trump is beyond the pale what he did here.
No, and really, when you think about this, and this is what honestly annoys me about Democrats and left-leaning media, yes, obviously it's quite shocking for anybody to take on the world economically, but the United States is the most stable, strongest, and most innovative country in the world. Even though there are Americans who would say otherwise and hate this country, the world market says otherwise, and this is why we have about 50 countries, as I make this video, who are willing to make a better deal already with the United States, but Donald Trump is still saying, nope, it's been way too long, and now all of a sudden you guys want to make a deal?
He has given economic justice to millions of American workers who lost their jobs over the last 5 decades, whose towns got decimated. He gave them economic justice in one day. Under the Biden administration, our trade deficit in 2024 was $1.2 trillion. That's not sustainable. We've been getting screwed forever. And all these stocks that are down, you know who's down? The companies that are based on foreign cheap slave labor. That's what their margins are based on zero imports, while our workers and our factories here get screwed and go out of business. That is over. For decades, we have been screwed by these other countries. We've done nothing about it. No president has the courage to stand up to Wall Street, which made a ton of money. You got to remember, all these people all of Wall Street has gotten filthy yacht rich.
Look, I got to stop right here. I'm really not trying to mess up this momentum, but again, everything I'm hearing him say, you would think, man, this must be some sort of Democrat or some sort of like somebody who's into socialism who's not into the stock market, like that stereotype. This is why I don't see why we're not all on board on making this happen. Everybody says we shouldn't be going after our allies. That's the point. If they're our friends and our allies, why are they giving us such terrible deals? Now, I actually agree. Look, if you're a Vietnam or you're a country who doesn't have a lot of money, it actually makes total sense why you would have high tariffs to make some more money from the very rich countries. And Donald Trump even said he respects that. But as far as the powerhouses like China and the European Union, absolutely not.
On the backs of the American worker, who they exploited to no end for 50 years. The reign of terror ended with that stroke of the pen on midnight. You look at these charts, and you find it online. You look at the tariffs, the tariffs that we can't sell anything into these markets. You can't do it. 50, 60, 70%. We can't export anything. That's why we had a $1.2 trillion trade deficit. But worse, it eviscerated manufacturing, factories, jobs for Americans. And President Trump stopped that. In one day, President Trump gave us economic justice. This is a day of reckoning for Wall Street. It is a day that will live in infamy. One day, one man with the courage gave us 60 years back of economic justice.
Man, again, if you guys know who this is, I would love to give him credit. For whatever reason, I cannot find who this is, and the person who posted him did not give him any credit. But he really lays it out in a way when you're looking from the outside in, trying to be objective. When you really think about it, there's no way we're not all a little like, okay, so our phones are not made in the United States because we make them for like $10 over in another country. That's a little odd when you think about it, is it not? And I'm not saying what we're trying to do is bring all of that back into the United States, because we all know overnight everything will now be way more expensive. But again, this is also a moral dilemma for the United States. If we're going to be the powerhouse and we're going to be all about making sure everybody has a safe working environment, we can't just be like, all right, all of you guys in the t-shirt factory, you don't count because I love my t-shirt, but in America, yeah, we're good to go. That's not how this works. And especially for the workers who've all lost their jobs, especially in manufacturing, I really do hope this all changes. But again, the bottom line and the main point of this video, it's already working over in Asia. They are feeling the heat of this, and guess what? They have no one to go to. There's no stability in the Chinese markets, Indian markets, Japanese markets. There's nothing. They have to go to the United States, which, you know, it does sound a little dangerous to put all the trust in one country, but the reason why they do it is because of all of the success throughout all of the years, all of the fighting the veterans have done for the country to be what it is today. This is why the United States is the powerhouse, and this is why we can make this dangerous move of taking on the world economically. As you can see, it's already working. Now, again, as I make this video, I don't have the news on the US stock market because I'm making this at 10:30 Eastern time right now. But I want to point out, Japan is feeling this as well. Japan's huge Monday sell-off was led by heavy drops in the shares of the country's three largest banks. Stocks viewed a proxy for the country's vulnerability to a global trade war, recession, and the risk that the Bank of Japan long-awaited monetary normalization will be derailed. So again, there's this notion that the United States, oh my gosh, look what Donald Trump did. What this is proving is that all of these countries literally rely on the United States, and when we act like we don't have anything as far as economy and stability, look at these countries because it's actually way worse for them. And to include them, Taiwan. Trading in Taiwan, shares was halted in Taipei on Monday morning after the two companies sold off sharply as the market opened. Shares of TSMC and Foxconn plunged almost 10%, triggering a circuit breaker that led to a trading halt for two of the largest companies on Taiwan's exchange. The broader TAIEX dropped 9.6% in early trading. Today is the first day the country stock market has traded since Donald Trump's sweeping tariff announcement on April 2nd. So again, this is not good for any of the Asian powerhouses, let alone our own allies who are supposed to be our friends. Now, without a doubt, this is probably going to get spun in a way of, hey, they're supposed to be our allies and now we're crashing their economy. Now they're not going to like us. Nope, that's not how it works. The way that the United States is hoping this works is that we will now come to the table. You guys learned your lesson. Don't mess with the United States and don't ever threaten the people who create stability in your country, especially if we're going to send our military to the Pacific to save you in Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Philippines. We are there for you, so make sure you are there for us. So anyway, that is what's currently going on. Very breaking news, quite interesting, so we'll see what happens. All right, thank you, God bless, and we'll see you guys later.